Hey, what's up, man? Just want to welcome you to Mind Behind the Music. We're honored here to host Alex Skolnick, a guitarist renowned for his versatility and innovation. At just 16, Alex became the lead guitarist for Testament, contributing to the band's rise in the thrash metal scene with albums like The Legacy and The Ritual. His pursuit of musical growth led him to study jazz at the New School in New York City, culminating in the formation of the Alex Skolnick Trio, where he reimagines rock and metal classics through a jazz lens. Beyond his work with Testament and his trio, Alex has collaborated with diverse ensembles, including the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and the metal supergroup Metal Allegiance. He's also an author, educator, and speaker, sharing insights into his multifaceted musical journey. Welcome, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I'll just add a couple things to the description.
All right, that's cool. Thank you.
I also play with Stuart Ham, great bass player.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm on his current record, Hold Fast. I also play with Percy Jones from Brand X. We have a project called Pact, P-A-K-T.
Nice.
And just did a guest track for Ardashir Farah from Struns and Farah. I've guested with Rodrigo and Gabriela. Got a bunch of guest stuff. Just did my first film score for a film that's coming out later this year. So a lot of stuff has happened since the bio that you read. But
yeah, that's awesome. Still, yeah, played with Joe Satriani, right? For a
Correct.
while there.
And recorded with Steve Vai.
Yeah, Steve Vai. That's pretty cool, man. So, what's this film score thing that you were talking about? That had to have been an experience for you. Was that the first time you ever worked at a film score? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I just dove right in. It's in some ways it's like playing with a band, except the band is on a screen and it's actors.
Yeah.
And action that's taking place. But
yeah, that's awesome, man. I tried that at Musician Institute film scoring, and I'm curious, as we're on this topic, how you really approached it, as a guitar player.
Yeah, well, luckily I know my way around a keyboard as well. And I wouldn't give concerts on piano, but as part of my regular practice, I play piano. I work on timing. I work on little snippets of songs that I like. Yeah, a lot of pop songs.
Enough to be able to actually play a few things on there.
Yeah, enough so people can recognize it. Oh, I know that. Oh, that's a nice little arrangement.
Yeah.
Cool. So that helps me. So then you have so many options now with digital audio workstations and MIDI. And I used the program Logic and a little MIDI controller keyboard. I'm also endorsed by IK Multimedia.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, they have a program. They have a lot of keyboard software.
Yeah.
But so they have one that I like particularly called Sample Tank.
Yep.
And it's all
with that.
Yeah. So I use that, but also Logic itself has so many sounds.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. So the first step for film scoring for me was finding sounds. And I started saving tracks just of sounds that I like. Instead of looking at a scene and saying, okay, now I have to find a sound. Like I found a little library of keyboard sounds that I liked.
Nice.
I did the same thing for guitar too. We have these. I use one called the Quad Cortex, which is made by Neural DSP.
Oh yeah, I love their plugins.
And I found a bunch of cool guitar sounds.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah. So I did a combination of things. Yeah, I did little jam sessions with myself and just recorded myself, exploring these sounds. And then if I thought a scene in this film would fit the sound, I would go back to the sound.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I could just take music I already played and put it, and I was surprised. It actually worked pretty well. In other cases, I would start over and play to the action. It happened many different ways. And then in other cases, I had music laying around that I just recorded and never released. And I went back to that. I took that. I had a bunch of acoustic pieces that I just had that I hadn't turned into songs yet.
Right.
And in some cases, would add keyboards to these acoustic or bass to these acoustic pieces, and I would develop them. It happened many different ways. So this was exciting. It was my first time. I'm definitely planning to do it again, but I had to finish this while I was on tour, which was a bit of a challenge, but I made it happen. And the film is screening in Brooklyn next week for friends and family, and it comes out in the fall.
Did you use like drum loops, or did you program the drums in MIDI style with Logic, or did you just do guitar?
Guitar,
keyboards, and bass.
I use a program called Superior Drummer.
Yeah,
it's great.
I've used that before.
Yes, it's great. It's great, and I've made demos with that. So if I needed drums. And I didn't always need drums, but there were a couple parts where it needed a drum beat. I would grab a drum beat from Tune Track. Usually I would have to adjust it a bit to fit the piece of music I was working on. Yeah. But it was a great starting point, and it sounds pretty convincing. Just out of curiosity, I went through Apple Loops, which is in Logic.
Yep.
And a lot of that is like EDM and dance stuff that I couldn't really use, but there were a few little samples. Like there was a sample of a harp being played. And there was
that's cool,
a moment where I thought, this would be so nice to just have a harp strum but in one part. Yeah. And
now it was really fun. Are these loops copyrighted, or are they license free?
No, they're free. They're open to the public.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've used Logic when I was going to Musicians Institute, but for my own personal use for a DAW, I use Pro Tools, and I've been using Ableton Live, which I'm pretty comfortable with both of them. But I do like Logic. I like it for the MIDI, purposes, and it's connecting my keyboard to it or whatever. But
yeah, I'm just dialed in with it. I mean, I can use Pro Tools. I haven't used Ableton. I have some friends that swear by Ableton.
Yeah,
I'd actually like to try it at some point.
Yeah, I love Logic too. I mean, that's a good program from Apple. And so yeah, that's cool, man. I took a course on film scoring while at MI, and it was challenging, and the teacher that I had, he was amazing. Basically what he did is he more or less just played in the background consistently, improvising, until he kind of got a vibe for the scenes. And
yeah, that's a lot of what it is. It's just improvising, and
I'm sure
you have something that fits.
I'm sure that you used a lot of dynamics, to help amplify the scene, like when.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I mentioned this project I have with Percy Jones, the great player from the 70s, and it's all improvisation, and it's a lot of peps. The other guitarist in the band is Tim Motzer, great artist, great ambient jazz player, and he almost doesn't sound like he's playing guitar. His parts almost sound more like keyboards or
really?
Sort of this Robert Fripp inspired sounds. Yeah. So I'm very inspired by him. But when I play with that project, I come up with a lot. It's all improvised, and it's a lot of ambient sounds. Very, very different than the music I'm most known for with Testament. That process, I think, helped a lot. It's just improvising And for this film, I improvised. I recorded more music than I needed to, and then listened back, and I would focus on a certain section that felt right and develop that. Yeah, much like anything else. You do photography. You always take more pictures than you need to, and
Yeah.
you hone in on a couple good ones. Or
Yeah, they can go back
writing.
through it really
And
and zone in on it, Your experience as a jazz artist as well would really help in that improvisation area,
oh, absolutely,
that have a positive effect in your approach to doing the film sport.
absolutely. Without sounding like jazz,
Yeah,
I didn't. None of it really called for jazz, but just the process of
yeah,
being able to improvise and being able to hear what you're going for before you play it.
yeah. It's awesome.
With When you learn jazz, you learn a lot of uh, ear training, and your head has to be in a very different frame of mind than playing, at least from my experience, than
Yeah,
from playing rock and roll and heavy.
I've heard that a lot from people. I actually heard jazz theory was probably the most difficult to learn because it's so much based on improvisation. And I can understand what you mean about having a good ear because I'm not a jazz player, but from what I understand of it, that majority of it's all improvised. So when somebody goes to like a dominant seventh chord or whatever, you can hear that, and you immediately can recognize where the other musician is going, or everybody can recognize that. And to me, I think that that's absolutely amazing. Obviously, it takes a great ear to do that, and I know that you've incorporated that in with metal, which we're gonna get into that. Uh,
Sure.
and I'm really interested in finding out how you balance the two. That was interesting, Alex. Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah.
me. But, so let's go back to the beginning. Can you recall the first moment guitar spoke to you, like a spark moment?
Music spoke to me very early on. I loved melodies. I loved the Beatles. I was told that even before I can remember, I used to sing songs, and it was mostly Beatles songs because the Beatles had a lot of songs that a kid could understand.
Yeah,
Here Comes the Sun. We all live in a yellow submarine.
Strawberry Fields.
Sure, yeah, exactly. So I was told that, I used to stand around singing these songs as a kid. So I'd say the Beatles left an imprint. The real spark with guitar, I think, was Chuck Berry.
Just good.
Well, those intros, Johnny Be Good, Roll Over Beethoven,
I think
just
that was ahead of its time, back then. Honestly, I don't remember
absolutely.
that from what I'm familiar with. I don't recall anybody at that time playing guitar like that. And maybe Jeff Beck and all them other guys or whatever. But
That was later.
oh,
No,
what's that?
Chuck Berry was before them.
Yeah.
So
So,
he was in the 50s.
oh wow, wow. So yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I.
the only person who played like that before him was Charlie Christian.
Mhm.
And Charlie Christian was the guitarist in Benny Goodman's band.
Okay, I'm not familiar, but I'll definitely check into that.
Yeah, if you ever check out Charlie Christian,
Okay.
and there's even a couple parts that Charlie Christian played with Benny Goodman.
Mhm.
It's the same lick. Like Chuck Berry definitely he was
That
inspired. I can hear it. Like Chuck Berry was inspired by it. He made it more high energy
yeah.
and or rock and roll. And the rhythm made the rhythm a little different, but there's definitely a similarity. But yeah, Charlie Christian was big influence
Chuck Berry.
on not just him, not just Chuck Berry, but also any jazz guitar player that came later, say like guys like Wes Montgomery, Jim
Oh
Hall.
yeah.
They all talk about Charlie Christian.
That's awesome, man. I'll definitely have to check into him.
Yeah, look into Charlie Christian.
Yeah,
But anyway, hearing those songs, that always got me excited. So the Beatles covered um, "Roll Over Beethoven" by Chuck Berry,
oh yeah,
and then I saw him in a film. There was a movie that came out, and it was all about 1950s rock and roll. It was called American Hot Wax, and the actors were Jay Leno and Fran Drescher, right before they were known for television.
right.
And one thing that takes place in this film is a big concert, and all these 50s musicians played themselves.
Right.
So Chuck Berry was there, Jerry Lee Lewis, Bobby Darin. But I thought Chuck Berry just stole the show.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that, with your skills as a metal guitar player, that it would have started with somebody like Jimi Hendrix, that's more of, heavier. And out of all the artists,
He was, yeah, I mean, he was later. But it was around the same time I heard Chuck Berry and saw Chuck Berry in this movie. I discovered Kiss. So that was the gateway to heavy rock and heavy metal. So I think I could have gone either way. I
yeah,
could have gone retro, Chuck Berry, 50s, or I could have gone, heavy rock, heavy.
yeah.
So, but it's related in a way because Chuck Berry, he influenced everybody. He did influence Hendrix. He influenced Lemmy. Lemmy was a big Chuck Berry fan.
Oh, really?
Photos of them together. Yeah.
That's interesting because
Yeah.
I can imagine with his style of music that he was influenced by something like that. But
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the thing for me.
you're talking about Motorhead, right?
Chuck Berry and
That's awesome, man. Out of all artists that I've spoken with about their influences, not many of Eddie had brought up Chuck Berry, so it's usually Hendrix or Jeff Beck or whatever. And as you had mentioned, that's before their time. So you grew up in a very
that was
Go ahead.
the first exciting thing that I could play on guitar. See if you can hear this.
There you go.
Right.
That is a killer riff, man. That's a killer riff for back then. I don't know much about him, but it seemed like he was definitely ahead of his time. Now, were you more of a structured practicer, or did music come instinctively to you as a kid? Were you all over the map, just doing whatever? You have a routine?
I was pretty all over the map. I think I became structured. I got my act together at a certain point. But I always played. And when I played, I had taken piano lessons before I played guitar, and didn't try hard enough. I had a teacher that wasn't very encouraging, and she was mad because I didn't practice enough, and I wasn't inspired to practice, so I gave up on it. But then when I started playing guitar, I was determined not to let it go away the way that
end up with the same results. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I stuck with it. And I was lucky. I had a very encouraging teacher who very complimentary.
Well,
that was just what I needed.
Somebody to inspire you. I think that some people can teach, and some people can just they can just play. But there's experiences where I've had where, because of my solid foundation in music theory, when I was going to college before MI, taking music, I could tell the teacher really didn't know how to explain, music theory, like, chord construction, for example.
Mhm.
And, and then a lot of the students in the class were confused. And it's not that she didn't know, the chord construction or music theory, but she obviously couldn't explain it very well. So that could definitely have an effect on you as a student and your progress and your inspiration. And so
But you also need different things at different times.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
a time where maybe you need just sort of gentle encouragement
yeah, inspiration.
and not to try to. And then there's other times where you need to be pushed and try harder and get past your limits.
Oh, somewhere along the way you got to be, amazing. So I've tried to get to there, find out about that here.
I think the most
Yeah,
important thing for me, was just finding out how to self-teach. And I've heard other players talk about this.
yeah,
At a certain point, you know how you learn. It's probably there's no book or method out there that's
yeah,
designed with you in mind.
right.
You know what I mean?
Find your own.
Everybody's
Everybody.
unique.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was kind of the same way when I was learning,
Um,
where I studied from a bunch of books, theory books, and of course, Guitar Magazine was like, a huge help to me, and sometimes it'd be the guy next door, or the guy down the street that would teach me a riff. So,
mhm.
that's
Yeah,
the difference between, learning today and back then because it wasn't handed to you on a silver platter.
that's
And,
right.
and like you said, there's, everybody's got their own way of learning. And I think because of, having limited options, you have to learn to develop your own voice earlier on, you know, and there's a lot of amazing players right now, kids, but um, I think they're lacking the experience. A lot of them are amazing, but they sit in their bedrooms and play. Whereas I think
Right.
personally, I think it's you learn more from playing, performing, you know,
Yes,
you
and
learn
it's
all-
hard to. Yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to create situations where you are performing, you're interacting with other musicians, you have listeners. Um, but that is the most helpful thing.
Yep. Yeah, you learn a lot just in one performance. And because you actually have to do it, like going from sitting in your bedroom and practicing for 12 hours a day is great, but the real deal is when you actually get out there and you have to perform and you have to present yourself and you have to play with other people, like you're saying, interact with other musicians, and it's a whole different ballgame. And I think a lot of the kids these days are lacking that,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Well,
You
also you can't start over.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I
mean, it's,
I had the hardest time having to break that habit, because every time you mess up, it's just natural that you want to start over again. And when you're in a band, you just got to keep going.
exactly. If you're an influencer, you
Yeah,
can just um, take a clip that you've shot after many other
yeah,
takes,
yeah.
and you find the best one. You put that out there.
You know,
But yeah, when you're out
oh, it's all
playing,
edited.
yeah, when you're playing with others and you're getting from point A to point B in a song, yeah, you you don't
You're put on the
you have to
spot.
make it whatever it is what it is, and there's just
That's
no substitute for
yeah,
that.
that's a skill in itself.
Yeah,
And you have to learn to be a performer, and otherwise, you're just gonna end up sitting in your bedroom and you'll be great, but I don't know. I just think that it prevents you, or it prevents kids these days from developing their own voice too. because of the fact that they're having everything handed to them on a silver platter.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think I was lucky to be able to tour pretty early.
Yeah, yeah, I was surprised. I didn't realize that you joined Testament at such an early age.
Yeah, I was 16, and I looked older. And a couple of the other guys looked much younger than they were.
Yeah,
So it was assumed that it was just, I was like, I was their age, like early 20s, but I was actually 18 on the first record.
Yeah,
But also a lot, I knew others who played guitar at that point. Not as many as now. Like today, there's so many young musicians. Good people start on guitar much earlier.
yeah.
But back then, if you were in your teens, like 16, and I already had like 5 or 6 years of playing under my belt, that was rare.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 18, there were other guitar players around that I knew who were my age, who were starting to get it together. But even then, just to join a band, jump in a van, go on the road, like, even some good players I knew just wouldn't do that. It was too crazy, and that took a lot of guts and a lot of hunger. And there's that experience just playing. Okay, you have the experience of playing a show at a young age. It's the best practice. Okay, well, and then the next night, you're doing it again. And of course, you're getting exhausted.
Exhausted, but you're getting better.
Right. You're driving. You're not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
You're arguing with them. There's like drama with but
in a van, that's got man.
Yeah, and it is tough, but you come back from that. It's like boot camp, and you have played every single night.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but get better, no matter how much you practice. And in my case, I was very serious about it. I was practicing all the time. So I remember I got back from my first tour at 18.
Your first boot camp.
Yeah, and I was already I'd unlocked a new level. Playing.
And I'm sure that continued, and it still continues.
I try to make it still continue. Absolutely.
Yeah. Were you guys booking your own gigs back then?
No, we were lucky enough to have an agent. We had booked our own gigs in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we're from.
Right.
The band had already started, so I wasn't part of that process.
Aren't they called something else first?
They were called Legacy.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to, I tried to start bands, and I realized, okay, I had guitar skills. I did not have leadership skills. I did not have the personality to wrangle and get people to rehearsals and make that I needed to learn. I eventually would learn those skills.
Yeah, develop that. Yeah.
I just knew, or somehow I felt I need to join a band. I need to join a band that's already booking gigs, that's already playing. And then this, almost like clockwork, this opportunity came up.
That is so awesome.
Guitar player left this band, and I'm like, all right, I'm in. Sign me.
Did they
like me enough? Yeah.
Yeah, that's important chemistry too.
Well, also I was pretty advanced. Like that type of music. It's kind of funny because the music's changed a lot. So I think, like if you call it, whether you call it thrash or extreme metal or whatever you call it, it's now associated with pretty solid technical guitar playing.
Yeah.
And you've got, like
Jeff Loomis, Arch Enemy.
Great example.
Yeah.
So somebody like Jeff Loomis didn't exist. At least it wasn't on my radar back then.
Yeah.
And most of the lead guitar in that style, it was more like garage rock, right? Slayer,
Yeah.
Motorhead.
Yeah. Were you guys influenced by them as a band?
Oh, the band certainly was. I was coming from a different place. I was into these technical guitar players. I was
Right.
really into
For
Randy
example,
Rhoads, with Ozzy,
Randy Rhoads.
Randy Rhoads.
Oh, yeah, that's why I play guitar, man. Randy. And
Yeah,
it was that you know, it was after he had already died, just elaborate
yeah.
really quickly.
And
And,
Randy's big inspiration was Van Halen, one of them.
what were they? Was it really? I didn't know that. You know.
I mean, well, they have the tapping. Certainly,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he had to be. I don't know how much. I'm sure that they had a bit of a rivalry, being LA
Yeah.
and Dog
Yeah. I heard that. I don't really, know too much about that, but
But really, like, as far as tone and yeah, new technique. I mean, those guys were really breaking new ground.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And by the time I was discovered them, Ingve was a thing.
Yep.
And I was also, by then I'd moved on to the most advanced teacher in the Bay Area that I could find, who wasn't known yet, but his name was Joe Satriani.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You took lessons from Satriani.
Yeah. So
What a way to start out, man. You know?
yeah. So again, he not as a beginner. I had a folk teacher for a few years. I studied with a couple rock and blues teachers. I took lessons from a couple guys that did hard rock that were pretty good technically, and they had studied with Satriani. So he was like the serious.
Was he charging like $200-$300 a lesson back then?
No, it was
like $10 an hour.
I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been like 20 or something, which was kind of expensive back then.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, forget it.
Man.
Such a great decision. So yeah, for about a year and a half, but close to maybe 2 years.
No wonder why you're so good.
Yeah. So it wasn't just that. I mean, he had a lot of students. A lot of students did not thrive with him because he was very serious.
Yeah.
This is it's Berkeley, California, so you have a lot of sort of chilled, laid back people that just want to play guitar and have fun.
Yeah, not really
and
seriously.
The seriousness, the work ethic, the discipline wasn't for them. And I knew people that some people even said, "Don't study with this guy. He's too serious. It's no fun." Yeah, and I knew this. Okay, this is exactly what I need. I want to have my butt kicked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So by the time I try out for the band, which is called Legacy, I'm a Satriani student, even though he wasn't known yet.
Right.
He was still like the guy. He was still known as the killer teacher. People in the Bay Area did know about him just as a teacher. And I was also, inspired by, Van Halen and Rhodes and Malmsteen, all these so that was very different from, like the Slayer Motorhead guitar mentality. So I was really like ahead as far as that goes. But now there's many more of, players like Jeff Loomis and Kiko Loureiro and, may he rest in peace, Alexi Leho.
Oh, dude. I saw Alexi perform, and that was a kick-ass show, man. And then,
what a great play. And a great musician. And somebody
I could imagine being able to play like that and sing like he was doing.
Brutal, like doing brutal, extreme playing his ass off.
Yeah.
So,
I said it was a thing from Musicians Institute, for the Mayhem tour or something that they were promoting, and I got to see him there, and that band was phenomenal, and he was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What pulled you toward jazz? And did your metal fan base react when you took that turn?
I had, there was a lot of criticism and resistance and stuff like that.
All from thrash to
I think at one
jazz.
Part of it was I was I'll address the resistance. It came because I was trying to make the music more interesting.
Yeah. I have
And sometimes
different style.
that would get, yeah, and that would get misinterpreted as trying to make the music more commercial, which I was not trying to do. Sometimes they were one and the same, because making it more interesting meant more melody, more harmony.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so it ended up maybe, in some cases, becoming more listenable or more accessible, but that was not the goal. It was about making it more musically interesting. It all started because I'd felt so much growth from studying with my folk teacher, to local blues guys, to local rock virtuoso guys, and then finding my way to the king of San Francisco Bay Area at that time, Satriani, and then touring, and then I just felt like so much growth.
Yeah.
But somehow there was just a period of time, I guess, between the first tour and the few tours in between, and then recording the second record. I felt like there was much along. I wanted to grow more. And I think I was looking for new inspirations.
Yeah.
Because I sort of, I'm working on the same stuff. And right around that time, I just got hit over the head with several recordings that could be classified as jazz, but I don't, I think it's debatable whether you call it jazz. The main one was Miles Davis, who, is unquestionably a jazz artist. He comes up, he's one of the most important names in jazz, but this music that he was doing during the 1980s, if jazz, the purist will say it's not jazz. But all the players, of course, are jazz, very knowledgeable in jazz. But anyway, Miles Davis's 1980s music was really exciting. I mean, he was doing funk, he was doing jazz rock, there was reggae.
Oh, he was incorporating jazz into other styles himself.
Yeah, it was a whole mix.
Yeah.
Okay, but some of these musicians he played with during that time, they include like John Scofield.
Yeah.
One of the yeah. And also, earlier in his career, Miles Davis, he didn't really cross paths with guitar very much. In the 70s, he played with John McLaughlin, and that started
Also
sort of his
played with
jazz
Al
rock.
Right? John played with Al
exactly.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Trying to get him.
Yeah, okay, I know Al, so.
He's doing a jazz festival this summer.
Yeah, no, he still continues to inspire. So he's another guy who his music may not be classified as jazz, but there's a jazz quality to it. And a lot of the people he's collaborated with over the years, from Chick Corea to Charlie Hayden, who's on a record, to Gonzalo Rubalcaba, they do jazz. But anyway, during this period, I saw an incredible live Miles Davis concert on television with one of his electric bands, probably John Scofield on guitar. I was aware of Al Di Meola, but I started getting more into him, especially his acoustic work.
Yeah.
At that point, I'd never owned a steel string acoustic guitar. So I got my first one and started learning his stuff. There were others as well, but really it started with seeing Miles on TV and discovering Al Di Meola, and also with each discovery, I would discover all these other musicians. Like with Al, I loved this acoustic duet he did with Chick Corea on his first album called Short Tales of the Black Forest. which he also recorded with McLaughlin and Paco de Lucia on their live guitar trio album. But okay, Chick Corea, and then suddenly I realized, oh my God, Chick Corea's got all these albums and all different types of music, and there's Return to Forever, and then just going back with Miles Davis. Wow, Miles Davis has recordings with Herbie Hancock. You know, and at that time, I'm thinking Herbie Hancock's the guy that does that hip hop instrumental song, Rock.
I vaguely remember.
Like, wow, he's got this whole other side, you know, and then the Headhunters period. And so suddenly, yeah, I fell in. I suddenly discovered all this amazing music. And at first it was sort of as a hobbyist, like, okay, I'm a metal guy. I can't really do this. And then I didn't want to just be a hobbyist.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand this music. I wanted to get, you know, at least be able to play some of it, or have be able to use its. Yeah, I got more and more into it to the point where I had to leave the West Coast and relocate to New York, get a university degree from this with one of the top jazz programs.
Yeah, that's awesome that you did that too. You know,
it just felt right to do. So it was one of the things. Okay, it makes no sense. I just feel this, and you know what? Since then, pretty much everything in my life, I try to do what feels right. Even if it makes no sense, there's no blueprint. There's no that's not a typical path for a musician, especially. I mean, no musician. There's no common path. You know, you hear about these paths. Oh, you know, start a band, get a record. It almost never happens that way. You know, it's happened for very few people.
Yeah, you've been fortunate.
Usually, you have to find your own path, and you can't predict what it is. And and at a certain point, I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to be an improviser, and I'm going to do heavy metal. I came back to it, and I've been doing both ever since.
That's awesome. You got that trio thing going on, I saw.
That's my main instrumental business.
That's your jazz project. That's cool.
You could call it jazz guitar. I mean, I don't know if it's a side project. It's a main project.
Oh,
it's
cool.
The main project for my instrumental compositions. Absolutely. And
so
I have 4 albums. That's the instrumental project I have the most recordings with. I have a half a dozen records now. A new one is coming out later this year.
That's awesome that you keep yourself inspired like that, and to kind of have, it's like having 2 different personalities, you know? And
absolutely.
And being able to explore, you know, another area of music is definitely awesome that you're able to put as much energy into it as you do for the Thrash. And so let's wrap this up with a few fun ones. I thank you very much for everything that you've shared, Alex. Whatever comes by,
Alex,
fire around here. What's the strangest thing you've ever seen backstage?
I was playing at an event with some great musicians, Billy Sheehan, Ray Luzier from Korn, and it was a NAMM event, and all the musicians, whoever's playing, every song is a different group, and whoever's playing lines up next to the stage. And we were lined up, and there were 2 Vegas showgirls lined up with us. And I had no idea why. And then I realized, they're doing the video. We were playing Hot for Teacher.
Oh, awesome.
And I realized these showgirls were there to reenact the video for
That's cool, man. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. So what's your most inspiring book that you've ever read, or anything that you've read lately or read in general over the years? A most inspiring book.
Okay. My most inspiring is Effortless Mastery. It's by Kenny Werner. He's fantastic artist, and educator. Great piano player.
All right, what's that one guilty pleasure song you secretly love?
Simple Minds. Don't you forget about me.
Right. And 3 Dream Jam session guitarists living or dead.
Peter Green, who's no longer around. Jimmy Herring, who's still alive and well. And George Benson. George Benson is a jazz guy. He's also known as a pop singer.
Okay.
But he's a serious jazz. Jimmy Herring is sort of known for the jam band world. He currently plays for Widespread Panic.
Okay.
But he had a great band called Aquarium Rescue Unit. And Peter Green is a legendary blues guitar player.
One more question that I'd like to get for the sake of those watching this and, for those that watch this channel is, do you have any advice for aspiring musicians in this day and age? The way the music industry is right now, or in general.
Listen to yourself. Follow your own advice. Listen to your gut instinct. Don't try to do what everybody else does.
That's awesome.
There is only one you. Thanks, John. We'll continue. Glad we can make it happen.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.